Okay, the sun's coming out. That metallic purple paint's really starting to sparkle if I don't put my shade over it. So, time for the strip down. And as I'm doing this, I'll try and show you what I think are clever little touches done by Bob Gervin when he was designing these bikes back in the early 90s. And I would usually start with making sure the seat post is free, but I know that's free. So next I'm going to move on to what I consider to be potentially the only area of trouble in this strip down, given the quality of care this has received over time, and I think that's going to be the pedals. Although looking at the back of the threads there, I think they might be okay. So chances are these have been unmoved for 30 years. So let's see how I get on removing the pedals. After that, I reckon the only other trouble I might have would be removing the bottom bracket and potentially, well, no, it's in a head stem, so I don't think the stem will cause problems. So let's see how we get on. I'll try and strip this down completely over the course of the day, as I get a few minutes here and there in between doing jobs, chasing around after kids' football, and all kinds of stuff. So that wasn't difficult at all. The pedals unscrewed really easily. I believe this bike has probably been kept garaged or in a shed all of its life and not seen a great deal of use, so that was good news, and it gives me the opportunity to show you the first bit of clever stuff that Bob Gervin did to get a rear suspension on a mountain bike with cantilever brakes. If we have a look here, and hopefully we'll focus, you can see that it's actually got a pivot that then pulls on the rear brakes via an attachment on the cantilever mount on the chainstay. Now, I look at that and think probably a lot of inefficiency in there, so it'll be interesting to see once I've got her rebuilt and take her for a ride whether there's actually much power going through to there that will stop the bike. But let's carry on with the strip down and see what we can remove next. I think I'll just take off some easy stuff. I'll take off the bar ends, which actually, looking at them, if you can see here, looks to me at some point the bar end might have been over tightened and overlies the end of that handlebar. I'll have a look at that a bit more as we start cleaning the removed components and get them ready for re-application. Toying with the idea of putting wider bars on it anyway, so it might not be the end of the world if that is the case. Stappled sunshine really isn't perfect conditions for doing videos, but I'll crack on anyway. So bar ends are off, grips are off. I've actually cut those off because they were sticky and uncomfortable on the short bit of riding that I've done on this bike. And as feared, we do have some crimping of the handlebar. Now it's at the end where the bar end is, and I would happily ride that gently, but it is a bit of an irritation. So if I'm going to see if I can get some wider bars on there other than the original Zoom 170 6000 aluminium butted, I will do so. Otherwise I might try and tidy that end up somehow, but I wouldn't trust it for heavy riding. Okay. What am I going to do next? Well, I think I will take the front brake cabling and the brake lever off, and then we'll see where I go from there. Okay, all the controls have come off nicely. Getting them off the left-hand side was a little bit tricky, as that deformed end of the handlebars made it a little bit awkward, but it's worked. All the cables are off too. Interesting to note that because of the design of the suspension frame and because of the position of the front derailleur, it's a little bit awkward to get to the bolt to undo it and allow the cable to be freed. But I got there, it wasn't that tricky. It'd be easier if I'd put it up in my bike stand, but you know, you live and learn, just trying to do this quickly in between doing chores and looking after kids. So I think next I'll move on to actually removing the brake parts themselves from the fork and the chainstay, and then it will be taking off the drivetrain. Okay, another little observation. Clearly the shifters that they replaced were integrated with the brakes. As you can see, they've been cut off and ground down here. So hadn't remembered that the STX were integrated brakes and shifters, but that will leave me with a little interesting quandary as to what to do to replace them. In the meantime, whilst it's a little bit annoying, it is something that can still be used as a brake lever. Okay, family chores, mowing around after football are over, so I just want to take a couple more things off. And I reckon, by a little bit of torchlight, I am going to take off the saddle, the seat post, and the seat clamp. And then that'll probably do. Tomorrow, I'll take off the brakes and the drivetrain, and then pretty much see if I can store the frame somewhere whilst I clean up the components, and also think about how I rebuild the forks. Anyway, let's get that sorted.